everyone, it's Kelsey, and today I'm going to be finally telling my birth story. But since I was kind of in the state that I was in, I have my husband here with me because I can't necessarily remember everything and how it happened and everything. So I do have a list of kind of times because otherwise neither one of us would know what they were, and we had to figure that out ahead of time. So we do have that list, so we'll be checking that. But I guess we'll start from where I left off in the last video. I got induced at midnight on Saturday morning. When I got induced, I was 0, 0, 0 everything. Really high 0. Like, labor was far away. Huh?
Said you were doped up.
Yes, we will get to that. Whenever they induced me, they put me on Pitocin and, what's it called? It's not morphine. Magnesium?
Yeah.
They put me on Pitocin and magnesium. Because where I'd already had the seizure, they didn't want me to have another seizure, so the magnesium was to help with that. But because I was on magnesium and Pitocin, I was definitely in the bed because magnesium makes you very, very, very out of it. And sleepy.
Like that.
Out of it, confused, loopy.
Just think about Dazed and Confused, the movie.
Yeah, I couldn't get up and walk because it was a fall risk. So I had to stay in the bed the entire time once I got induced. So I started at nothing. They put me on Pitocin, and then around, what was it? Probably, let's guess. They've checked me multiple times during the night.
Yeah.
But at 7 a.m., I was at 1 centimeter. Only 1. And I was still very high. Fully loopy at this point. Very out of it. I was having contractions, but they weren't really like terrible or anything. I mean, just a little bit to feel it. Not like what I imagined at all, but it was definitely the beginning stages. I wasn't progressing at all. So they were, me in my head, I was like, oh man, I want to have a C-section. That's what I thought the entire time. My body's not doing what it's supposed to because I was earlier and it just wasn't catching up to what they were wanting it to do. So they start at around what, 3?
Before that, they tried to balloon her.
Yeah, right before 3 o'clock, they probably tried to, when they tried to do a balloon.
And, yeah.
I'm just going to say, I want to say that whenever I imagined having a child, I imagined the painful part being the child delivery, and I never realized how hard it hurts when they check you to see what your dilation is. Every time they would check me, it would hurt so bad. And it's just because my body wasn't progressing like it was supposed to. So when they tried to do the balloon, it was bad. Like, I was crying. My body was in such defensive mode that they couldn't even get the balloon in. Because that's how bad my body was trying to defend itself. Like, it would not let them do it. Like, I was crying. It was awful. Yeah, my mom was in there and she said that she was about ready to slap the person because they just kept on. Not like she was really going to slap them, but she was getting very frustrated because I was like basically telling them to stop. It hurt so bad. And they kept trying, but it wasn't working. My body was not letting it happen. So what they did was they decided, they're like, well, we can keep waiting a little bit longer, or we can go ahead and give you an epidural and see if your body just will take from that and do what it's supposed to do. Like, it'll relax your body enough that they can do the balloon. So that was like, I was like very, I was a little upset at that point, but at the same time I was like, well, if I'm going to have a C-section, which is what my brain was already saying, I might as well go ahead and have it done, and go ahead and do this epidural. But when they did the epidural, I passed out. Which I passed out with needles anyway, and somehow, I don't really know how, but it was in like all my stuff that I passed out with needles. but somehow the people didn't know I passed out with needles. I don't know where that got lost in translation. So I am like going out, like needles in at this point, right?
Yeah. Your blood pressure was bottoming out too.
Yeah, my blood pressure was bottoming out, and I was passing out. But they got it done, and then it was over, and I moved on. But I didn't really... Like, it has a continuous drip on the epidural. And then there's also something I can add extra to it. I was having contractions. I mean, not a whole ton. I mean, but I was having contractions. But then they started getting a little bit more, and I was like, well, I don't want to use all my epidural, because for some reason I thought that could happen. I've heard of others saying that by the time they actually gave birth, because I was still at 1 at this point. I was like, I don't want to use a whole bunch of epidural for these little contractions whenever I want them for the big ones later on, if that makes sense. So, but I was like, well, I'll go ahead and use a little bit of it. I used a little bit of it. I still could feel my legs and stuff, but it was numbing, the pain a little bit. But then they checked me, 30 minutes later?
Yep.
Like 30 minutes after the epidural, they're like, okay, now we're going to check and see if we can go ahead and do the balloon. When they checked me, I was at 3 centimeters, and my body was starting to do what it needed to do. It was relaxing enough to continue on in the labor process. So they're like, well, there's no point in doing a balloon because the most it's going to make you is like 4?
3.
3. So I was already there. So it didn't matter. See, I can't remember everything, so I'm having to ask. But then, so that was at 3, they gave me the epidural. At 3:30 is whenever I was at 3 centimeters. And I've already been in labor for, how many hours is that?
14, 15.
Yeah, about 15 hours. I've been in labor. I say labor. I mean, I've been in
So 12 to 12 is 12 plus 3:30 is 15 and a half hours.
Well, whatever. But the contractions were definitely there. I wasn't like in major pain. I mean, I don't think I was in major pain, but I was also in and out of sleep the entire time. Because of the magnesium, everything is very fuzzy. Like, remembering it, I was sleeping. Like, there were people coming in and out. His family was there. Some of my family was there. Because we gave birth during flu season, no one under 10 years old could come to the hospital, which I understand, I agree with, I get. But it made it difficult because half my family couldn't be there. That would normally be just waiting in the waiting room with everyone else. So it was very interesting to kind of not have a big part of my family there. But, I mean, I was like making all kinds of jokes and saying all kinds, because I mean, what was the next time I have written down? Yeah, I guess they checked me 12 hours later. Yeah, 12 hours after my epidural, basically, at 2:30. They checked me and I was at 6 centimeters, and I was actually having like pretty big contractions, but I could still feel them a little bit. But the epidural was definitely helping, and I was using the epidural because I was like, well, I have it, I might as well use it. And at one point I was like, I don't understand why people never use these things. Like, I was delusional. But I always thought you shouldn't use it, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really glad that I had it. Because if I had enough, I probably would have had to have a C-section because my body was not doing what it was supposed to do. So that was pretty funny because evidently that wasn't the only joke I was making. Apparently I was making a lot of jokes. Anything else you remember that I was saying that was pretty funny?
Some that are inappropriate for YouTube.
Oh, well, like what?
I don't know. I mean, they would give out names and stuff like that, so.
Oh, I was like, I don't remember being that, but so 12 hours after my epidural, I've progressed to 6 centimeters, and then 2 hours after that, it was 4:30 in the morning, and I was at 8 centimeters, and they let me lay down to rest. And when did I get my food finally? I was so frustrated because I'm just going to go back to this because I forgot to add this in. But, okay, when you go into labor, I've always thought, okay, all you can have is ice chips. That's all you can have. I don't know why I thought that's all you could have, but I guess it's just because for years and years is what I've heard. And then we get in there and the nurse is like, oh, you can have Jello and this and like a whole big list of things that I can have. Like even like drinks and all this. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And she literally told me this. And then less than 10 minutes, hooked me up to something and said, oh, you can't have any of those things now. All you can have is ice chips. I was like, okay. Well, if I'd have known that, I would have ate something right before. But no, they didn't. She didn't tell me that. She just told me this big list of things. Oh, this is all the stuff you can have. And then, boom, you can't have it anymore. And I was very frustrated about that. I remember some of my delusion went around some of that conversation. Like, I just want some Jell-O. That's all I wanted. What time was it that I finally got food? I'd been in labor, so I got induced at 12. It was, I want to say it was like when I was like 8 centimeters. It was like early in the morning on Sunday. So it had been well over 24 hours since I'd ate anything. And I was just like, can I please have some Jell-O? And once I guess my body started doing what it's supposed to do, the doctor said I could have some Jell-O. And I was like, thank goodness. I ate a lot of Jell-O. Not a lot, but I ate a lot of Jell-O. But it was almost 5 o'clock in the morning. I was 8 centimeters dilated. Then, what time is shift change?
7.
7. Did I say 8 o'clock in the morning?
You said 5 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. Woo!
You did say 8 o'clock, but it was 5 o'clock in the morning.
It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was 8 centimeters dilated. Mm-hmm. And they just let me rest. They're like, lay down and rest. And
Are you on Pitocin and magnesium?
Right now, no, I'm not. But they were like, we'll just rest, and we'll see what your body does. And I was laying there. I remember laying there, and I'm like, I feel like that I need to be checked. Like, I feel like I need to be checked. And shift change was at 7, and it was right around 7 o'clock that I was kind of like, I feel like I need to be checked. And the doctor that was delivering literally was changing. I loved the doctor that I had during the labor process. Loved him. And he was like a traveling doctor, so he wasn't there all the time. But he was amazing.
And good looking.
Apparently everyone was talking about how good looking the doctor was. I really didn't pay no attention. I was kind of busy. But I really didn't. That was your sister. That was not me.
Everybody was talking about how good looking he was.
I was? I really don't remember that.
It's probably because you were doped up.
I really don't remember talking about him. But the new doctor that was coming in, I was like, please don't be the doctor that I have on a regular basis, because I really didn't want him. And it wasn't even a doctor in our practice. It was just a random doctor. And I was like, it wasn't the doctor who checked me, but I told the nurse, I was like, I need to be checked. And she was like, oh, you're at 10 centimeters. I was like, I knew, even with all the drugs and everything, I knew. I was like, I can feel like it's time. So they put me like in labor down position, which is just where they were kind of raised the bed up and my body just kind of naturally brings him down so that I wasn't having to push as long. They say that kind of helps. Not everyone does that. I mean, I've never heard of laboring down before. But I've never also been in a delivering room, so maybe I'm just not knowing about the situation that everyone does. But they had me do that for how long? Was that like I don't know. Well, it wasn't that long because probably about an hour.
Less than that, probably. Well,
somewhere around an hour, maybe a little bit less. And I just was like sitting there, and I wasn't pushing any at this point because they were wanting me to my body to naturally do it, and he wasn't in distress and nothing was going on. He did good the entire time. A few times I would lay funny or something and I'd have to be moved around, but he did good the entire time.
And I did great the entire time. Thanks for asking.
Well, you could speak. That's what you're here for.
No, I'm just letting you do all the talking.
But the nurse started having me push around 8 o'clock, and I could feel the contractions, and I could tell, I thought it was kind of funny because she didn't think I was going to be able to feel them the way she was acting. I would tell her, I'm like, here comes a contraction, and I would start pushing, and she's like, oh no, and the monitor would pick it up, and she's like, oh yeah, that is a contraction, which I thought was interesting. I mean, I thought my body was supposed to naturally, but I guess where I had so much epidural, she didn't think I was going to be able to feel it, but I definitely did. So I started pushing, and then she was like, oh, you need to stop. So I stopped, and then the doctor came in there for less than probably 5 minutes. He was in there.
He came in, and as he was scrubbing in, he goes, took so long to get ready for him to get here, but you ain't taking no time to push him out.
Yeah. So I delivered him at around 8:33 in the morning, and he was 5 pounds 11 ounces. And
she stole the baby out of the doctor's hands.
Yeah, as soon as he was born, like, I mean, everyone knew I wanted to do like skin to skin. The doctor knew that. They'd already said they're gonna just place him on me, but I kind of was just like, and like kind of took him apparently. The doctor didn't say anything to me, or no one said anything to me.
She didn't take him. She snatched him.
But it was, I mean, it's what I wanted to do. I mean, he was so tiny though. Like, I put him on me, and I was like, they all said he was going to be so big, and Seth was a big baby, and I was an average size baby. So I was like, oh, and they said in the ultrasound that it was going to be an average size baby. Maybe even a little bit on the bigger than average size. And so I was like, I placed him on my chest, and not even really on my chest, it was more like on my belly, but I picked him up, and I was like, he's so tiny, and he was so sleepy. All of the medicine, I mean, I know it wasn't just the epidural, because I've heard of other people who have magnesium who say that it makes the baby really sleepy. But it makes the baby really sleepy. I've heard of multiple people saying that. And it was, they were having, like, rub him really hard to, like, make sure he was all good, because he was very, very, very tired. I guess I was kind of surprised, because most people, the way you hear it done is they kind of have to go off, and I didn't want that, and they did everything I wanted, and I really enjoyed that. But he was like, the feeling of having him on me right after, it was something I can't describe. Like, it, even like the way his like skin felt, I know that sounds weird, like how warm he was. I know it's odd, but like the first time I gave him a bath, I was like, it kind of feels like the same, like that feeling. He definitely doesn't have that little baby feeling anymore, but it was just such a sweet thing. And I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to go through it again. I don't know. We'll see what happens down the road. But it was definitely the best experience. I wish that I wasn't on magnesium. But the feeling of giving birth was amazing. I didn't have any major tearing or anything. I mean, there was a little teeny tiny bit, but they said it wasn't even enough to stitch or anything. Like, it was, I mean, I felt like my body did what it was supposed to do by itself at the end, which I know it wasn't by itself because I had Pitocin, but I feel like, I don't know, I was proud of myself, I guess, because I was very worried I was going to like pass out or not be able to do it or something along those lines. But I was very proud of myself because, I mean, I feel like, and even Seth will say that I wasn't like screaming or going crazy or anything like you see it on the movies.
My hand didn't break. I wasn't screaming to it that this was my fault. You didn't scream, get this thing out of me. Mm-hmm. You didn't poop on yourself.
No, I didn't.
So, I mean, I guess it was a good delivery.
I mean, I guess it was just very peaceful.
Yeah.
Would you describe it that way?
Yeah.
It was nice. Even though I was on the drugs and I didn't like that part, him getting here was amazing. And
quietest I've ever seen her was while she was on that medicine.
Wow. Thanks. Appreciate it. Well, I guess that's where we're going to end his birth story. I wish we would have got to film more, but if we do it again, hopefully I'll do a better job at that. But anyway, we don't know what we're doing because right now our hands are kind of really full. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Be looking for updates soon of the actual baby, not just my process. And we're going to go deal with these screaming children. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.